Today, 42 years ago, Fraggle Rock aired for the very first time on HBO. I personally discovered Fraggle Rock sometime in 2010 when I spotted the DVD release Wembley's Egg Surprise in a small store. At the time, I was quite fascinated with puppet shows such as Bear in the Big Blue House and It's a Big, Big World, so I was immediately drawn in, and once I watched it, I fell in love with Fraggle Rock. That was the precise moment I knew that this show was something special, and I'm eternally grateful to the Lord for bringing it into my life. There are many shows I hold dear: Dinosaurs, Seinfeld, Gravity Falls, but Fraggle Rock is undeniably my favorite show in the entire universe. It's a show that deeply speaks to me in a profound, artistic, and spiritual way. So on this fabulous, glorious day, I'll be listing off my top 10 favorite Fraggle Rock episodes. Before we begin, I must put out a disclaimer: these aren't all flawless episodes, 2 of which are definitely rated lower than the others. However, these are episodes I personally cherish and enjoy, despite their flaws. To not include these specific episodes would be dishonest. So with that being said, here are my top 10 favorite Fraggle Rock episodes. Number 10. Home is Where the Trash Is. This is definitely the most flawed episode on this list, but no part of me dislikes it. Firstly, the plot itself is very contrived. Philo and Gunge have never previously expressed wanting to go home, as they say. It's always been sort of implied that they've been with Marjorie for most of their lives, so them randomly wanting to leave out of the blue not only feels out of character, but painfully contrived. I have many more criticisms, but for the sake of this video, I'm mainly focusing on the positive. This is undeniably my favorite McMooch appearance. He's so much more menacing and creepy here. I also love the set design of the eerie swamp. It radiates an atmosphere of damp filth, very fitting to the repulsiveness of McMooch's character. This entry also has a very important message pertaining family quarrels, conveying that it's better to talk out your problems in lieu of running away and possibly crossing paths with evil beings like McMooch. Quite a wholesome, atmospheric, and thrilling episode that's always been my go-to Season 3 entry. Number 9. Wembley and the Mean Genie. This is admittedly another flawed episode, particularly in how ham-fisted and unsubtle the message is, making the episode seem a bit like a cheesy after-school special. However, what makes this episode rise above its potential mediocrity is the characterization of the titular Mean Genie. He's a very compelling and sympathetic antagonist. Sure, he's a bully, a brute, and a prickard, but underneath he's a very lonesome, deeply vulnerable soul. I mean, how would you feel if you were practically bound to grant everyone else's wishes but your own? I have reason to believe that the genie was badly mistreated in the past, thus resulting in his destructive, rebellious behavior. He's been so consumed by rage and deep inner struggle and turmoil that it's corroded his better judgment. Quite complex for a one-time antagonist. I like that he's given a happy ending too, with Wembley distinguishing the difference between standing up for yourself and just doing whatever you want to do. Despite the cheesy conveyance of this message, it's still quite a good moral to impart on children, and a fun episode overall. Number 8. Pebblepox Blues. This is the episode that tackles sensationalism and its costly effects. Sickness is never fun, believe you me. The Fraggle I related to most in this episode was Gobo. I'm regrettably very cranky and woeful whenever I'm sick, but nevertheless, it is a natural part of life and something we must all face, and it's better to face it logically in lieu of exacerbating things with fear and false perceptions. Boober learns this lesson once Wembley's sick and his fear-mongering about germs greatly increases his suffering. There's a handful of great Boober and Wembley episodes, but this is unequivocally my favorite. They really do make for a fine duo, and despite Despite this episode's overall eerie and disquieting nature, especially when they enter the colliginous Cave of Shadows, a location of Fraggle Rock that still makes my blood run cold, it's quite wholesome that Boober risks his own health to save his friend. Now that's what I call friendship. I struggle to find really any flaws with this one. This is yet another go-to Season 3 entry. Number 7. The Voice Inside. This is a perfect Gobo-centric entry. It almost feels like a spiritual sequel to Gobo School for Explorers. This is actually the first episode I watched with both my best friend Jordy and my boyfriend Jensen. It's a great introductory episode that shows all of Fraggle Rock's finest qualities. Sprocket's been in Fraggle Rock before, but this is the first time he really goes on an adventure with Gobo along with Wrench. The three make for a pretty great team, and it's nice to see Wrench again in a much better episode. The lesson here is a very understated one as well. It's ostensibly about trusting your gut feeling. At first, Gobo isn't keen on this philosophy until he experiences it himself in a very effective and foreboding scene. I've experienced this exact feeling many times throughout my life, and who knows what could have happened if I ignored it. This episode has a very remarkable score as well. It captures the atmosphere and emotion of the episode flawlessly. I could go on about how much I adore this one. It's a very thrilling, emotional, and fun adventure story that's always held a special place in my heart. Number 6. The Great Radish Famine. This is one of those entries I'd show to someone who's never seen Fraggle Rock to introduce them to the show's core themes. I hold a great amount of nostalgia for this one, but nostalgia isn't really its only quality. This episode is emblematic of the show's entire message, that being of love, peace, and understanding one another. Marjorie takes away the radishes, the one thing connecting the three species together, and the only way to bring them back is for a Fraggle, a Doozer, and a Gorg to meet in the garden at midnight. Things get ballsed up, but Marjorie isn't all too bothered. It has a very realistic conclusion where things haven't exactly been solved yet, but there's still a possibility for peace and change. Undeniably, one of Fraggle Rock's most poignant and evocative entries. Number 5. Uncle Matt's Discovery. Uncle Matt comes home walked so this episode could run. Gobo is always worshipped as Uncle Matt, and this is another instance where they both find themselves on opposite spectrums. Matt embarrasses Gobo with his outward fear, pretending it never happened, and Matt is deeply insecure about his own fears and disgracing himself. This causes a rift between them, leading to Matt believing the magic is lost, in one of Fraggle Rock's most heart-shattering scenes. This episode seamlessly displays familial quarrels, but more importantly, it further progresses Matt and Gobo's respective characters. There's a bit of a base level lesson that fear is nothing to be ashamed of, but I like how both Matt and Gobo eventually admit their own faults and move forward. This is also the episode that introduces the enigmatic T. Matthew Fraggle Room, one of Fraggle Rock's most gorgeous caverns that adds an extra layer of mysticism and magic to an already ethereal episode, arguably Matt and Gobo's best outing. Number 4. The River of Life. This was the 4th episode of Fraggle Rock I ever watched on the Song of the Cloud Forest DVD. Environmental episodes are very easy to botch, but the River of Life executes this uncompromising topic with the utmost maturity and grace. It's a perfect companion piece with the Song of the Cloud Forest, although much less dark in tone. This is also my favorite Boober-centric entry. Despite his immense fear and cowardice, he's no stranger to rising to the occasion to save his friends, and this episode is a great example of Boober's true courage. Atmosphere-wise, this episode is tension incarnate. There's a real sense of urgency and despair present throughout, with Pa even stating that without clean water, they are all going to die. Even at the beginning, there's this inescapable sense of looming dread. I can't sing my praises for this one enough. It's an evocative, flawless masterpiece that never fails to deeply move me. Unquestionably, one of Fraggle Rock's most effective episodes, and I can't wait to review this one in further detail. Number 3. Marooned. Fraggle Rock has its fair share of dramatic disaster entries, but this one is by far the most emotional of them. For the first time, we truly see the Fraggles face their mortality. Boober and Red are the very definition of opposites for obvious reasons. It takes real talent to write an episode where two Fraggles this different connect in such a meaningful way. This episode serves to develop both characters. We learn that Red represses her fear, and Boober realizes that he's less afraid than he usually is. This is one of those episodes that proves that this isn't just merely your typical kids show. This is a work of art. It says a lot about the performer's talent to invoke such pure, genuine emotion from fabric puppets. When I see Red and Boober in this episode, I don't see puppets. I see people. I see characters who feel real and alive. This is an entry I'll always remember as a masterpiece of character writing. It's near impossible to watch this one without crying, and out of all the Radish-worthy episodes, this is easily Season 1's best. Number 2. Gone but Not Forgotten. Despite being my near favorite episode of all time, it's one I tend to watch less. Not at all because it's of lesser quality, but merely because of how utterly heart-shattering it is. I still can't get through this one without crying. It's an episode made for anyone who's experienced loss. It maturely and seriously depicts grief and how to deal with it in a healthy way. And what makes this episode all the more heartbreaking is how innocent Wembley is and how little time he knew Mudwell. Richard Hunt is unforgettable as Mudwell. You can tell how much heart he put into the role. Many suspect Hunt drew from real emotions, since many of the friends and lovers he'd known were passing away at the time this episode aired. It's difficult to put into words how much I love this episode. It has a beautiful message and handles the subject matter perfectly. I still remember how much of an impact this episode made on me as a child, and it remains a poignant, heartfelt masterpiece that I'll never forget. Number 1. Wembley's Egg. This was the very first episode of Fraggle Rock I ever watched all the way back in 2010. It's the sole reason why I consider Wembley as my favorite character too. He's so pure, so loving, and so innocent, and this episode exemplifies his best character traits. It's adorable to see him play the motherly role in the baby bird's life and do his best to teach it how to fly. The atmosphere as well is unlike any other in the show. Everything about this one, from the lighting to its score, feels so nostalgic, and it radiates a warmth that always soothes my soul. While not the most complex entry, it's a very heartwarming episode about the responsibilities of parenthood. I admittedly don't have much else to add that I haven't already said before, so I'll wrap it up here. Wembley's Egg is my personal favorite episode, and I'll cherish it for the rest of my life. Well guys, that was my top 10 favorite episodes of my favorite show in the entire universe. I hope you all sincerely enjoyed it, and remember, you cannot leave the magic.
The magic is always there, as long as we keep looking for it.